Hey, yeah, hi, hello. Oh, why do I have an echo? Oh, that's not good. Okay, well, I can close that. That's strange. Where is this coming? Why is this coming out of my... Why? Why are you like this? Can... Are you guys getting the echo? Oh, it's only me. Okay, okay, you guys can't hear it, but I'm getting reverb back from my desktop for a reason. I'm sure it's an important one, but okay. I don't know why. That maybe that'll do it. Okay, it's gone now. Okay, whatever, it's working. Yeah, I was getting like a huge loop. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of a slog because this is quite a long article. It's kind of more of an overview for the first little bit, so you guys let me know if I'm reading too quickly because you might want to listen to it on a faster speed, and I know that I speak really fast sometimes, so you can't speed it up. So, the Times obtained Donald Trump's tax information extending over more than 2 decades, revealing struggling properties, vast write-offs, an audit battle, and hundreds of millions in debt coming due. All right, so, oh, I need to be louder. I can be louder. How's that? Is that better? Hopefully that will do it. I don't want to yell because this article is long and it's going to kill my... I don't know, project too much. Okay. So, yeah, this was posted on September 27th, so there may actually be updates to this as of current time, which is... What day is it? It's October now? October 21st, so it's almost a month previous. Okay. Donald J. Trump paid $750 in federal income taxes the year he won the presidency. In his first year in the White House, he paid another $750. So he paid like a minimum wage worker's 2-week, like a minimum wage part-timer amount. 1 paycheck of taxes. He had paid no income tax at all in 10 years of the previous 15 years, largely because he reported losing much more money than he made. As the president wages a re-election campaign that polls say he is in danger of losing, his finances are under stress, beset by losses of hundreds of millions of dollars in debt coming due that he has personally guaranteed. So if he's personally guaranteed it, he knows this money is due and that he is going to pay it. It's okay, Helios. You only missed me messing with my audio. Also hanging over him is a decade-long audit battle with the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, over the legitimacy of a $72.9 million tax refund that he claimed and received after declaring huge losses. An adverse ruling could cost him more than $100 million. So if the IRS, so I guess there's an audit battle going on with the IRS that if he loses, he's in huge trouble, and it's essentially checking out this $72.9 million. That's a lot of money. The tax returns that Trump has long fought to keep private tell a story fundamentally different from the one he has sold to the American public. His report to the IRS portray a businessman who takes in hundreds of millions of dollars a year, yet racks up chronic losses that he aggressively employs to avoid paying taxes. Now, with his financial challenges mounting, the records show that he depends more and more on making money from businesses that put him in potential and often direct conflict of interest with his job as president. To the surprise of no one. Conflict of interest? No! You don't say. The New York Times has obtained tax return data extending over more than 2 decades for Mr. Trump, and I enjoy that they call him Mr. Trump and not President Trump. Usually when articles are writing about the president, they say president name, but then nobody does it for Trump, and I think it's because nobody respects him. More than 2 decades for Mr. Trump and the hundreds of companies that make up his business organization, including detailed information from his first 2 years in office. It does not include his personal returns for 2018 or 2019. This article offers an overview of the Times' findings. Additional articles will be published in the coming weeks. So it's been a month, so there's probably additional articles. You guys can let me know if you want me to take a look for them and see what I can find, because this article will be enough for one stream, so if we want to do subsequent ones, you guys let me know. The returns are some of the most sought after and speculated about records in recent memory, when in Mr. Trump's nearly 4 years in office, and across his endlessly hyped decades in the public eye. Journalists, prosecutors, opposition politicians, and conspiracists have, with limited success, sought to excavate the enigmas of his finance. That's some good writing. I like that. By their very nature, the filings will leave many questions unanswered, many questioners unfulfilled. They comprise information that Mr. Trump has disclosed to the IRS, not the findings of an independent financial examination. They report that Mr. Trump owns hundreds of millions of dollars in valuable assets, but they do not reveal his true wealth, nor do they reveal any previously unreported connections to Russia. So that's what's not in the article, or in the findings from the Times. In response to a letter summarizing the Times findings, Alan Garton, a lawyer for the Trump Organization, said that, quote, most, if not all, of the facts appear to be inaccurate, and requested the documents on which they were based. After the Times declined to provide the records in order to protect its sources, Mr. Garton took direct issue only with the amount of taxes Trump has paid. Quote, over the past decade, President Trump has paid tens of millions of dollars in personal taxes to the federal government, including paying millions in personal taxes since announcing his candidacy in 2015. End quote, Mr. Garton said in a statement. So essentially, one of his lawyers is saying that, okay, but he paid all this taxes and personal tax, which personal taxes are, that these are two different things. With the term personal taxes, however, Mr. Garton appears to be conflating conflating income tax with other federal taxes Mr. Trump has paid: Social Security, Medicare, and taxes for his household employees. Mr. Garton also asserted that some of what the president owed was paid with tax credits, a misleading characterization of credits which reduce a business owner's income tax bill as a reward for various activities like historic preservation. So, quick brief on what that is. Essentially, you can't pay with a tax credit. Your taxes just get lower because of these reasons. You don't like give a number and then you say, oh, but I did this and it goes down. No, you present your information and they say, oh, so you did this, so here's your total amount. So you can't have an amount and then be like, oh yeah, here, I'm going to pay it with this credit. That's backwards. From my understanding. Again, please, my understanding is very, very limited. But come on, some of this is pretty self-explanatory. The tax data examined by the Times provides a roadmap of revelations, from write-offs for the cost of criminal defense lawyer and a mansion used as a family retreat to a full accounting of the millions of dollars the president received from the 2013 Miss Universe pageant in Moscow. So, president made a bunch of money in Moscow, and the tax write-offs that he put in were a criminal defense lawyer and a mansion. So he paid no taxes in 2013, and all of it was written off because of a mansion and a criminal defense lawyer, and so he got to keep all of the money from Moscow. Neat! Together with related financial documents and legal filings, the records offer the most detailed look yet inside the president's business empire. They reveal the hollowness but also the wizardry behind the self-made billionaire image, honed through his star turn on The Apprentice, that helped propel him to the White House and that still undergirds the loyalty of many of his fan base. Could you imagine voting for somebody because they were on The Apprentice? What a bizarre... I guess there were people in Canada that were voting for Trudeau because they thought he was attractive. But... I mean, I don't think that's a good reason either. The Apprentice, along with the licensing and endorsement deals that followed from his expanding celebrity, brought Mr. Trump a total of $427.4 million. So, on average, people will make 30 to 40 to maybe 100K in a year. This dude made $427.4 million. Jesus, dude. Even if you were to take 100 million out of that, you would still be at 327.4 million. That's still a shitload. Why? Who cares about, like, paying $100 million in taxes when you have that insane amount of money? I don't understand. The Times analysis of the record found. That's the amount. He invested much of that in a collection of businesses, mostly golf courses, that in the years have since steadily devoured cash, much as the money he secretly received from his father financed a spree of quixotic overspending. I'd never seen this word. I'm looking it up. I don't know what this word means. I'm assuming it means like something like excessive. What is this word? Exceedingly idealistic, unrealistic, and impractical. Yes, okay. How do you say it?
Quixotic.
Quixotic. I like learning new words. Quixotic. I'm sure we could find some uses for that term on Twitter. Quixotic. Overspending that led to his collapse in the early 1990s. Indeed, his financial condition when he announced his run for president in 2015 lends some credence to the notion that his long, short campaign was at least in part a gambit to reanimate the marketability of his name. So it's like, hey, in 2015, he wants to run for president to revitalize his money, but, you know. Yes, Trump is not the correct. Historical philosopher said, to be fair, most rich people do the same as Trump. They pay very little in tax because the tax laws are written to benefit them. Yes, I agree. What I don't understand, that there's definitely lots of rich people that do this. One of the reasons why they're rich. But what I don't understand is that why do they care so much when they are about such a small amount in compared to how much they actually have? So why is it so important to have that extra $100 million when you're already at 3? You have 4 and you take away 1, you still have $300 million. That's... Why do you care? I don't... Like, I understand you have to have a certain mentality to become rich and stay rich, which is, like, penny pinching and, like, keeping, like, being smart about your money. But, like, come on, there's gotta be a line, right? I guess not. As the legal and political battles over access to his tax returns have intensified, Mr. Trump has often wondered aloud why anyone would even want to see them. Quote, "There's nothing to learn from them," he told the Associated Press in 2016. There is far more useful information, he has said, in the annual financial disclosure required of him as president, which he has pointed to as evidence of his mastery of a flourishing and immensely profitable business universe. In fact, those public filings offer a distorted picture of his financial state, since they simply report revenue, not profit. In 2018, for example, Mr. Trump announced in his disclosure that he has made at least $434.9 million. The tax records deliver a very different portrait of his bottom line, which is $47.4 million in losses. So, completely other side of the spectrum. Tax records do not have the specificity to evaluate the legitimacy of every business expense Mr. Trump claims to reduce his taxable income. For instance, without any explanation in his returns, the general and administrative expenses at his Bedminster Golf Club in New Jersey increased fivefold from 2016 to 2017. That's a lot. And he has previously bragged that his ability to get by without paying taxes makes me smart. Am I gonna have... do I have to do that in a Trump... Makes me smart. As he said in 2016. But the returns, by his own account, undercut his claim of financial acumen, showing that he is simply pouring money into many businesses than he is taking out. Or he's pouring more money into businesses than he is taking out. The picture that perhaps emerges most starkly from this mountain of figures and tax schedules prepared by Mr. Trump's accountants is of a businessman's president in a tightening financial vice. Most of Mr. Trump's core enterprises, from his constellation of golf courses to his conservative magnet hotel in Washington, report losing millions, if not tens of millions of dollars a year after year. His revenue from The Apprentice and from licensing deals is drying up, and several years ago he sold nearly all the stocks that now might have helped him plug holes in his struggling properties. The tax audit looms. And within the next 4 years, more than $300 million in loans, obligations for which he is personally responsible, will come due. Against that backdrop, the records go much further towards revealing the actual and potential conflicts of interest created by Mr. Trump's refusal to divest himself of his business interest while in the White House, which I'm pretty sure is against the Constitution, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's not allowed to do that. There is. You don't have to listen to me. That's okay. I don't mind. His properties have become bazaars for collecting money directly from lobbyists, foreign officials, and others seeking face time, access, or favor. The records, for the first time, put precise dollar figures on those transactions. At the Mar-a-Lago Club in Palm Beach, Florida, a flood of new members starting in 2016 allowed him to pocket an additional $5 million a year from the business. In 2017, the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association paid at least $397,602 to the Washington Hotel, where the group held at least one event during its 4-day World Summit in defense of persecuted Christians. What's this, what is this religion doing in politics here, boys? The Times will also be able to take the fullest measure to date of the president's income from overseas, where he holds ultimate sway over American diplomacy. When he took office, Mr. Trump said he would pursue no new foreign deals as president. Even so, in his first 2 years in the White House, his revenue from abroad totaled $73 million. And while much of that money was from his golf properties in Scotland and Ireland, some came from licensing deals in countries with authoritarian leaning leaders or thorny geopolitics. For example, $3 million came from the Philippines, $2.3 million came from India, and $1 million from Turkey. He reported paying taxes in return. He reported paying taxes in turn on a number of his overseas ventures. In 2017, the president's $750 contribution to the operations of the United States government was dwarfed by the $15,598 he or his companies paid in Panama, the $145,400 in India, and the $824,000 in the Philippines. Dear God, these are some big numbers. These are numbers bigger than most people see in a year. So to put this into perspective, a lot of people make between $30K and maybe 60 is a little bit more common, but let's say up to $100K. This is still over the $100K mark. So he's spending more than what people make in a year for some reason. Mr. Trump's U.S. payment, after factoring in his losses, was roughly equivalent in dollars, not adjusted for inflation, to another presidential tax bill revealed in the early half a century before in 1973. The Providence Journal reported that after a charitable deduction for donating his presidential papers, Richard M. Nixon had paid $792.81 in 1970 on an income of about $200,000. The leak of Mr. Nixon's small tax payment caused a precedent-setting uproar. Henceforth, presidents and presidential candidates would make their tax returns available for the American people to see. I would love to do that, Mr. Trump said in 2014 when he asked whether he would release his taxes if he ran for president. He has been backpedaling ever since. Heck, Buck. This is true. When he ran, he said he might make his taxes public if Hillary Clinton did the same with the deleted emails from her private server. An echo of his taunt while stoking the birther fiction that he might release his returns if President Barack Obama released his birth certificate. He once boasted that his tax returns were very big and beautiful. Why would you call it that? But making them public, it's very complicated. He often claims that he cannot do so well under audit, an argument refuted by his own IRS commissioner. When prosecutors and congressional investigators issued subpoenas for his return, he wielded not just his private lawyers, but also his power of the Justice Department to stalemate them all the way to the Supreme Court. Mr. Trump's elaborate dance and defiance have only stoked suspicion about what secrets might lie hidden in his taxes. Is there a financial clue to his difference to Russia and its president, Vladimir Putin? Did he write off as a business expense the hush money payment to the pornographic film star Stormy Daniels in days before the 2016 election? Did a covert source of money feed his frenzy of acquisition that began in the mid-2000s? Womp womp. The Times examined and analyzed the data from thousands of individuals and business tax returns in the 2000s through to 2017, along with additional tax information from other years. The trove included years of employee compensation, information, and records of cash payments between the president and his businesses, as well as information about ongoing federal audits on his taxes. This article also draws upon dozens of interviews and previously unreported material from other sources, both public and confidential. All of the information the Times obtained was provided by sources with legal access to it. While most of the tax data has not previously been made public, the Times was able to verify portions of it by comparing it with publicly available information and confidential records previously obtained by the Times. Oh, deference. Sorry, yes, deference, not difference. Sorry, my mistake. To delve into the records is to see up close the complex structure of the president's business interests and the depth of his entanglements. What is popularly known as the Trump Organization is in fact a collection of more than 500 entities, virtually all of them wholly owned by Mr. Trump, many carrying his name. For example, 105 of them are a variation of the name Trump Marks, which he uses for licensing deals. Fragments of Mr. Trump's tax returns have leaked out before. Transcripts of his main federal tax form in the 1040 from 1985 to 1984 were obtained by the Times in 2019. They show that in many years, Mr. Trump lost more money than nearly any other individual American taxpayer. 3 pages of his 1995 returns mailed anonymously to the Times during the 2016 campaign showed that Mr. Trump had declared losses of $915.7 million, giving him a tax deduction that could have allowed him to avoid federal income tax for almost 2 decades. 5 months later, the journalist David Craig Johnson obtained 2 pages of Mr. Trump's returns from 2005, not 2015, 2005. That year, his fortune had rebounded to the point that he was paying taxes. The vast new trove of information analyzed by the Times completes the reoccurring pattern of ascent and decline that has defined the president's career. Even so, it has its limits. Tax returns do not, for example, record a net worth. In Mr. Trump's case, a topic of much posturing and almost as much debt. Could you imagine having you posture so much and have so much debt that your posturing is actually still outweighing the amount of debt you owe? But while returns report debts, they often do not identify lenders. Ooh. I missed a half of a line. The documents chart a great churn of money, but while returns report debts, they often do not identify lenders. The data contains no new revelations about the $130,000 payment to Stephanie Clifford, the actress who performs as Stormy Daniels. A focus of the Manhattan District Attorney subpoena for Mr. Trump's tax returns and other financial information. Mr. Trump has acknowledged reimbursing his former lawyer, Michael D. Cohen, who made the payoff, but the materials obtained by the Times did not include any itemized payment to Mr. Cohen. The amount, however, could have been improperly included in legal fees written off as a business expense, which are not required to be itemized on tax returns. Oh, debate? Save me from myself. No subject has provoked more intense speculation about Mr. Trump's finances than his connection to Russia. While the tax records reveal no previously unknown financial connection, and for the most part lack the specificity required to do so, they did shed new light on the money behind the 2013 Miss Universe pageant in Moscow, a subject of enduring intrigue because of the subsequent investigations into Russia's interference in the 2016 election. The records show that the pageant was the most profitable Miss Universe during Trump's time as co-owner, and that it generated a personal payday of $2.3 million, made possible at least in part by the I don't know how to pronounce that German friends send help. who would later help set up the infamous 2016 meeting between Trump campaign officials seeking dirt on Miss Clinton and a Russian lawyer connected to the Kremlin. I'm sure we're all familiar with that. In August, the Senate Intelligence Committee released a report that looked extensively into the circumstances of the Moscow pageant and revealed that as recently as February, investigators subpoenaed the Russian singer Emin What? Oh, it's Russian. Sorry, yeah, you're right, it's Russian, my mistake. Agalarov? Maybe? Please, end me. Who was involved in planning it? Mr. Agalarov's father, Aris, a billionaire who boasts of close ties to Mr. Putin, was Mr. Trump's partner in the event. Oof. The committee interviewed a top Miss Universe executive, Paula Shugart, who said that Agalarovs offered to underwrite the event. Their family business, Crocus Group, paid a $6 million licensing fee and another $6 million in expenses, so $12 million total. But while the pageant proved to be a financial loss for them, they recouped only $2 million. Miss Shugart told investigators that it was one of the most lucrative deals the Miss Universe organization ever made, according to the report. That is born out of the tax record. They show that in 2013, the pageant reported $31.6 million in gross receipts, the highest since at least the 1990s, allowing Mr. Trump and his co-owner, NBC, to split profits of $4.7 million. By comparison, Mr. Trump and NBC shared losses of $2 million from the pageant the year before, the Moscow event, and $3.8 million from the year after that. Dear Lord. Just read the letters. That's how language works, unless it's English and French. I know, so from my experience so far, which I admit is very little, English, because I'm an English speaker, I look at a Russian or a German word and I expect it to behave differently than it does, because it's very phonetic, and English is not very phonetic. Well, Mr. Trump crisscrossed the country in 2015, describing himself as uniquely qualified to be president because he was really rich and had built a great company. His accountants back in New York were busy putting the finishing touches on his 2014 tax return. After tribulating all the profits and losses from Mr. Trump's various endeavors on a Form 1040, the accountants came to line 56, where they had to enter the total income tax the candidate was required to pay. They needed space for only a single figure, 0. For Mr. Trump, that bottom line must have looked familiar. It was the 4th year in a row that he had not paid a penny of federal income tax. Mr. Trump's avoidance of income tax is one of the most striking discoveries in his tax return, especially given the vast wash of income itemized elsewhere in those filings. SpaghettiOs. Mr. Trump's net income from his fame, his 50% share of The Apprentice, together with the riches showered upon him by the scores of suitors paying to use his name, totaled $427.4 million through 2018. A further $176.5 million in profit came to him through his investment into highly successful office buildings. So how did he escape nearly all taxes on that fortune? Even the effective tax rate paid by the wealthiest 1% of Americans could have caused him to pay more than $100 million. The answer rests in a third category of Mr. Trump's endeavors, businesses that he owns and runs himself. The collective and persistent losses he reported from them largely absolved him from paying any federal income tax on the $600 million from the Apprentice branding deals and investments. So he had some other businesses that were costing him money, and because of that, he's getting a tax break on the amount of money he made, because supposedly that money is going back into that. Basically. Throughout his career, Mr. Trump's business losses has often accumulated in sums larger than could be used to reduce taxes on other income in a single year, but the tax code offers a workaround. With some restrictions, business owners can carry forward leftover losses to reduce taxes in the future. Why? Okay. That provision has been the background music to Mr. Trump's life. As the Times' previous reporting on his 1995 return showed, the nearly $1 billion in losses from his early 1990s collapse generated a tax deduction that he could use for up to 18 years going forward. The newer tax returns show that Mr. Trump burned through the last of the tax-reducing power of that $1 billion in 2005. Just as the torrent of entertainment riches began coming his way following the debut of The Apprentice the year before. For 2005 through 2007, cash from licensing deals and endorsements filled Mr. Trump's bank account with $120 million in pure profit. With no prior year losses left to reduce his taxable income, he paid substantial federal income taxes for the first time in his life, which is a total of $70.1 million. Oh, and it was so bad his poor little heart couldn't handle doing it again. As his celebrity income swelled, Mr. Trump went on a buying spree unlike any he had since the 1980s, when eager banks and his father's wealth allowed him to buy or rebuild the casinos, airplanes, yachts, and hotel that would soon lay him low. When The Apprentice premiered, Mr. Trump had opened only 2 golf courses and was renovating 2 more. By the end of 2015, he had 15 courses and was transforming the old post office building in Washington into a Trump International Hotel. But rather than making him wealthier, the tax records reveal, as never before, each new acquisition only led the downward draft on his bottom line. Consider the result at his largest golf resort, Trump National Doral, near Miami. Mr. Trump bought the resort for $150 million in 2012. Through 2018, his losses have totaled $162.3 million. He has pumped $213 million of fresh cash into Doral, tax records show, and he has $125 million mortgage balance coming due in 3 years. His 3 courses in Europe, 2 in Scotland, 1 in Ireland, have reported a combined $63.6 million in losses. Overall, since 2000, Trump has reported losses of $315.6 million at the golf courses that are his prized possessions. Oh my god, this is so complicated for no reason. Why is he a jerk? For all of its Trump world allure, his Washington hotel, opened in 2016, has not fared much better. How was he allowed to open a hotel in 2016? Its tax records show losses through 2018 of $55.5 million. This is so much money. It's just so much money. And Trump Corporation, a real estate service company, has reported losing $134 million since 2000. Mr. Trump personally bankrolled the losses year after year, marking his cash infusions as a loan with an ever-increasing balance. His tax records show. Why were banks still giving him money? In 2016, he gave up on getting paid back and turned the loan into a cash contribution. Mr. Trump has often posited that his losses are more accounting magic than actually money out the door. Oh, please put the link to Legal Eagle covering this. Legal Eagle is amazing. Mr. Trump has often posited that his losses and blah, 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 blah. Last year, after the Times published details of his tax returns from 1980s to 1990s, he attributed the red ink of depreciation, which he said in a tweet would show losses in almost all cases, and that was very much non-monetary. I love depreciation. That's not what that says. Depreciation. There we go. I love depreciation, Mr. Trump said during a presidential debate in 2016. I had to read that word again. I read it right the first time, and I had to read it again. Dear Lord. How is he able to get away with this for 20 years? Depreciation, though, is not a magic wand. It involves real money spent or borrowed to buy buildings or other assets that are expected to last for years. Those costs must be spread out as expenses and deducted over the usual life of the asset, or the useful life of the asset. Even so, the rules do hold particular advantages for real estate developers like Mr. Trump, who are allowed to use their real estate losses to reduce their taxable income from other activities. What the tax records for Mr. Trump's businesses show, however, is that he has lost chunks of his fortune even before depreciation is figured in. The 3 European golf courses, the Washington Hotel, Doral, and Trump Corporation reported losing a total of $150.3 million from 2010 to 2018 without including depreciation as an expense. Jeez! To see what a successful business looks like, depreciation or not, look no further than one in Mr. Trump's portfolio that he does not manage. So if you want to see a successful business, look for one that Trump is not running. Noted. Because of course, why would we want to put Trump in charge of anything? Everything he touches just... After plans for a Trump-branded mini-city... What? A mini-city? I need to see these plans. On the far west side of Manhattan, stalled in 1990s, Mr. Trump's stake was sold by his partner to Verondo Realty Trust. Mr. Trump objected to the sale in court, saying he had not been consulted, but he ended up with a 30% share of the 2 valuable office buildings owned and operated by Voronado. I had that backwards. His share of the profits through to the end of 2018 totaled $176.5 million with depreciation factored in. He has never had to invest more money in the partnership, tax records show. Among businesses he runs, Mr. Trump's first success remains his best, the retail and commercial spaces at Trump Tower, completed in 1983. Have reliably delivered more than $20 million a year in profits. So, again, $20 million a year. Average person working like average hours is going to be making between $30,000 and $60,000 up to $100,000. He's making $20 million. Why? $20 million a year in profits, a total of $336.3 million since 2000 that has done much to keep him afloat. Mr. Trump has an established track record of stiffing his lenders, but the tax returns reveal that he has failed to pay back far more money than previously known, a total of $287 million since 2010. $287 million. The IRS considers forgiven debt to be income, but Mr. Trump was able to avoid taxes on much of that money by reducing his ability to declare future business losses. For the rest, he took advantage of a provision of the Great Recession bailout that allowed income from canceled debt. Why is there something from the Great Recession that still applies? Shouldn't these things have like a timer on them? Like, oh hey, once the recession's over, this isn't no longer applicable. Whatever. Allowed income from canceled debt to be completely deferred for 5 years, then spread out evenly over the next 5. He declared the first 28.2 million in 2014. Once again, his business losses mostly absolved his tax responsibilities. He paid no federal income taxes for 2014. Once again, his business losses mostly absolved his tax responsibility. I just read that. Mr. Trump was periodically required to pay a parallel income called the alternative minimum tax, created as a tripwire to prevent wealthy people from using huge deductions, including business losses, to entirely wipe out their tax liabilities. As he settled into the Oval Office, his tax bills soon returned to form. His potential taxable income in 2016 and 2017 included $24.8 million in profits from sources related to his celebrity status and $56.4 million for the loans he did not repay. The dreaded alternative minimum tax would let his business losses erase only some of his liability. Each time he requested an extension to file his 1040, and each time he made the required payment to the IRS for income taxes he might owe $1 million for 2016 and $4.2 million for 2017, but virtually all of that liability was washed away when he eventually filed, and most of the payments were rolled forward to cover potential taxes in the future. Oh my god! Each time he requested I just read that, to cancel. How do you... I don't understand how this... Like, I understand how this is possible, but it blows my mind that... Why is this possible? To cancel out the tax bills, Mr. Trump made use of a $9.7 million business investment credits, at least some of which related to his renovation of an old post office of the old post office hotel, which qualified for historic preservation tax break. Although he had more than enough credits to owe no taxes at all, his accountants appear to have carved out an allowance for a small tax liability for both 2016 and 2017. When they got to line 56, the one for income taxes due, the amount was the same each year at $750. Testifying before Congress in February of 2019, the president's estranged personal lawyer, Mr. Cohen, recalled Trump showing him a huge check from the U.S. Treasury some years earlier and using... Trump quote... that he could not believe how stupid the government was for giving someone like him that much money back. Not a Trump quote, but I wanted to make it one. In fact, confidential records show that starting in 2010, he claimed and received an income tax refund totaling $72.9 million, all the federal income tax he had paid for 2005 through 2008, plus interest. Why? The legitimacy of that refund this is blowing my mind. My brain. We're halfway through. The the legitimacy of that refund is at the center of the audit battle that he has long been waging out of public view with the IRS. The records that the Times reviewed square with the way Mr. Trump has repeatedly cited, without explanation, an ongoing audit as grounds for refusing to release his tax returns. He alluded to it as recently as July on Fox News when he told Sean Hannity, "They treat me horribly, the IRS, horribly." And while the records do not lay out all the details of the audit, they match his lawyer's statement during the 2016 campaign that audits for his returns for 2019 and subsequent years remain open and involved, quote, transactions or activities that are also reported on the returns for 2008 and earlier. Mr. Trump harvested that refund bonanza by declaring huge business losses, a total of $1.4 billion from his core businesses for 2008 and 2009 that tax laws had prevented him from using in prior years. But to turn that long arc of failure into a giant refund check, he relied on some deft accounting footwork and an unwitting gift from an unlikely source, Mr. Obama. Ooh, and we take a turn. This is like reading a mystery novel. This is like reading the end of a mystery novel that doesn't explain shit until the very end, where it's like, oh, and we knew the whole time, and it's like, you literally gave me none of this information beforehand. I was not able to figure this out. This is garbage. Business losses can work like a tax avoidance coupon. A dollar loss on one business reduce $1 of taxable income from elsewhere. The types and amounts of income that can be used in a given year vary depending on an owner's tax status, but some losses can be saved for later use or even used to request a refund on taxes paid in a prior year. That sounds like bull. Until 2009, those coupons could be used to wipe away taxes going back only 2 years, but that November, the window was more than doubled by a little notice provision in a bill Mr. Obama signed as part of the Great Recession recovery effort. Now, business owners could request full refunds on taxes paid in the prior 4 years as 50% of those from the year before that. Bruh! Mr. Trump had paid no income taxes in 2008, but the change meant that when he filed his taxes for 2009, he could seek a refund of not just the $13.3 million he had paid in 2007, but also combined the $56.9 million paid in 2005 and 2006 when The Apprentice created what was likely the biggest income tax bite of his life. Wow. The records reviewed by the Times indicated that Mr. Trump filed for the first of several tranches of his refund several weeks later in January 2010. That set off what tax professionals refer to as a quickie refund, the check processed in 90 days on a tentative basis pending an audit by the IRS. Thanks, Obama. His total federal income tax refund would eventually grow to $70.1 million plus $2,733,184 in interest. That's a lot of interest. Oh my god. Also, he received $21.2 million in state and local refunds, which often piggyback on federal filings. While Mr. Trump gets to keep the cash, though, remains far from a sure thing. Refunds require approval from the IRS auditors, and an opinion of the Congressional Joint Committee on Taxation, a bipartisan panel better known for reviewing the impact of tax litigation. Tax law requires the committee to weigh in on all refunds larger than $2 million to individuals. Hey, there's a failsafe! Yay! Records show that the results of an audit of Mr. Trump's refund were sent to the Joint Committee in spring of 2011. An agreement was reached in late 2014, the documents indicate, but the audit resumed and grew to include Mr. Trump's returns for 2010 through 2013. In the spring of 2016, with Mr. Trump closing in on the Republican nomination, the case was set back to the committee. It has remained there, unresolved, with the statute of limitation repeatedly pushed forward. Oh my god! What did the Republican Party do? If it makes anybody feel any better, if this was a Democratic, I wouldn't like if this was a Democratic president, I wouldn't care and would be reading this anyway. I'm Canadian, I don't have that kind of an issue. This is just bonkers. Precisely why the case has stalled is not clear, but experts say it suggests that the gap between the sides remains wide. If negotiations were to deadlock, the case would move to federal court, where it could become a matter of public record. The dispute may center on a single claim that jumps off the page from Mr. Trump's 2009 tax return, a declaration of more than $700 million in business losses that he has not been allowed to use in prior years. Unleashing that giant tax avoidance coupon enabled him to receive some or all of his refund. The material obtained by the Times does not identify the business or businesses that generated those losses, but the losses were a kind that can be claimed only when partners give up their interest in a business. And in 2009, Mr. Trump parted ways with a giant money loser, his long-failing Atlantic City casinos. Are you a Democratic Canadian or a Republican Canadian? Neither. After Mr. Trump's bondholders rebuffed his offer to buy them out, and with a third-party round of bankruptcy only a week away, Mr. Trump announced in February 2009 that he was quitting the board of directors. "If I'm not going to run it, I don't want to be involved in it," he told the Associated Press. "I am one of the largest developers in the world, and I have a lot of cash and plenty of places I can go." The same day, he notified the Securities and Exchange Commission that he had determined that his partnership interests are worthless and lack potential to regain value, and was hereby abandoning his stake. So he cut and ran. The language was crucial. Mr. Trump was using the precise wording of the IRS rules governing the most beneficial and perhaps aggressive method for business owners to avoid taxes when separating from a business. A partner who walks away from a business with nothing, what tax laws refer to as abandonment, can suddenly declare all the losses on that business that could not be used in prior years. But there are a few catches, including this. Abandonment is essentially an all-or-nothing proposition. If the IRS learns that the owner received anything of value, the allowable losses are reduced to just $3,000 a year. Ooh. That's spicy. Why is it spicy? Taxes shouldn't be spicy. This is ridiculous. This is a clown fiesta. It does sound like Kyle. Oh my god, could you imagine if Kyle tries to get out of whatever taxes he did or did not pay on non sequitur by claiming abandonment on non sequitur? Mr. Trump does not appear to have received something. Oh, Mr. Trump does appear to have received something. When the casino bankruptcy concluded, he got 5% of the stock in the new company. The materials reviewed by the Times do not make it clear whether Mr. Trump refunded application reflected his public declaration of abandonment. If it did, that 5% could place his entire refund into question. If the auditors ultimately disallow Mr. Trump's $72.9 million federal refund, he will be forced to return that money with interest and possibly penalties, a total that could exceed $100 million. He could also be ordered to return the state and local refunds based on the same claims. In response to a question about the audit, Mr. Garton, the Trump Organization lawyer, said facts cited by the Times were incorrect without citing specifics. He's saying, basically the lawyer's saying, nuh-uh. He did, however, write that it was illogical to say Mr. Trump had not paid taxes for those 3 years just because the money was later refunded. Quote, While you claim that President Trump paid no taxes in 10 of the 15 previous years, Mr. Garton said, you also assert that President Trump claimed a massive refund for tens of millions for taxes he did pay. These two claims are entirely inconsistent and, in any event, not supported by the facts, end quote. House Democrats who have been in hot pursuit of Mr. Trump's tax returns. I don't know why the Republicans aren't in hot pursuit of Mr. Trump's tax returns, because they really should be. They should probably care. Okay, I will tell you what my bias is for when it comes to American politics. I do not like Mitch McConnell. That is an old turtle man who needs to not be there anymore. And it's mostly because he's kind of the worst. I don't care if a Republican replaces him or if a Democrat replaces him. I don't care. I just don't like him. Like, as a person, but also as a politician, but also as, like, he's just the worst. So if I have a bias in anything in regards to this, I don't like Mitch McConnell. Creepy turtle man. Ugh. Ugh. House Democrats who have been in hot pursuit of Mr. Trump's tax returns most likely have no idea that at least some of the records are sitting in a congressional office building. George Yin, a former chief of staff for the Joint Committee, said that any identifying information about taxpayers under review was tightly held among a handful of staff lawyers and was rarely shared with politicians assigned to the committee. It is possible that the case has been paused because Mr. Trump is president, which would raise the potential stakes of re-election. If the recent Fox interview is any indication, Mr. Trump seems increasingly agitated about the matter. It's a disgrace what's happened. Oh, it's a disgrace what's happened, he told Mr. Hannity. We had a deal done. In fact, it was. I guess it was signed even. And once I ran, or once I won, or somewhere back a long time ago, everything was like, well, let's start all over again. It's a disgrace. I need a drink of water. Examining the Trump Organization's tax records, a curious pattern emerges. Between 2010 and 2018, Mr. Trump wrote off some $26 million of unexplained consulting fees. Who would consult him? For what? The dude doesn't know how to close an umbrella. As a business expense across from nearly all of his projects. It sounds like he's charging himself. Whatever. After the fact, I'm charging you all for all of the thumbnails that I made, and I'm charging you $1 billion! Examining the Trump Organization's tax records, a curious pattern emerges. Between 2010 and 2018, Trump wrote off some $26 million of unexplained consulting fees as a business expense across nearly all of his projects. In most cases, the fees were roughly 1/5 of his income. Wow. Azerbaijan? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I apologize, but I tried my best. And Helios for Two said, don't sully the good name of Turtles, that traitor. Okay, fair enough, but he does look like he jumped. Okay, he looks like he came out of Master of Disguise, and he needed to go to a turtle club, and he was asking if he was turtley enough for the turtle club. Turtles are better than Mitch McConnell, I agree. They don't deserve him. Maybe they should do something about it. Somebody call TMNT. Anyway, Mr. Trump collected $5 million on a hotel deal and reported $1.1 million in consulting fees. Well, in Dubai, it was $3 million with a $630,000 fee, and so on. Got it. Mysterious big payments in business deals can raise red flags, particularly in places where bribes or kickbacks to middlemen are routine. But there is no evidence that Mr. Trump, who mostly licenses his name to other people's projects and is not involved in securing government approvals, has engaged in such practices. Rather, there appears to be a closer-to-home explanation for at least some of these fees. Mr. Trump reduced his taxable income by treating a family member as a consultant and then deducting the fee as a cost of doing business. The consultants are not identified in the tax record, because of course they're not. But evidence of this arrangement was gleaned by comparing the confidential tax records to the financial disclosures Ivanka Trump filed when she joined the White House staff in 2017. Miss Trump Miss Trump reported receiving payments from a consulting company she co-owned totaling $747,622 that exactly matched consulting fees claimed by tax deductions by the Trump Organization for hotel projects in Vancouver and Hawaii. Oh my god. Miss Trump has been an executive officer of the Trump companies that received profits from and paid the consulting fees for both projects, meaning she appears to have been treated as a consultant on the same hotel deals she helped manage as part of her job at her father's business. Bruh. When asked about the arrangement, the Trump Organization lawyer, Mr. Garten, did not comment. Employers can deduct consulting fees as a business expense and also avoid the withholding taxes that apply to that wage. To claim the deduction, the consulting arrangement must be an ordinary and necessary part of running the business, with fees that are reasonable and market-based, according to the IRS. Uh-oh. The recipient of the fees is still required to pay income tax. The IRS has pursued civil penalties against some business owners who devise schemes to avoid taxes by paying exorbitant fees to related parties who were not in fact independent contractors. A 2011 court case centered on the IRS's denial of almost $3 million in deductions for consulting fees the partners in an Illinois accounting firm paid themselves via corporations they created. The court concluded that the partners had structured the fees to distribute profits, not to compensate for service. And there you go, everybody. That's the difference. This is what it looks like when you structure a business to avoid taxes. Yeah, I recommend watching the Legal Eagle video about this. I'm just trying to get this overview out of the way. Maybe this overview will help people understand Legal Eagle's video better, or vice versa. I don't know. I'm just reading this garbage. giving myself an aneurysm because I hate myself. I'm trying to do a public service by reading this for you guys because I didn't know there was already a reading of it somewhere, even in the video, because I'm crying. Leave me alone. Ugh. This is awful. Everything about this is awful. My throat is going to suffer from this. There is no indication that the IRS has questioned Mr. Trump's practice of deducting millions of dollars in consulting fees. If the payments to his daughter were compensation for work, it is not clear why Mr. Trump would do it in this form, other than to reduce his own tax liability. Another more legally perilous possibility is that the fees were a way to transfer assets to his children without incurring a gift tax. That would be a big oof. Big oof. So I'm gonna get the chat. You guys let me know what you think. Who is the worst at paying their employees or performing proper business? Donald Trump. 1 for Trump. 2 for Kent Hovind. 3 for Kyle. 1, 2, 3. All right, you guys let me know what you think. Who's the worst? Ethically the worst. Let's go with ethics. A Times investigation in 2018 found that Mr. Trump's late father, Fred Trump, employed a number of legally dubious schemes decades ago to evade gift taxes on millions of dollars he transferred to his children. It is not possible to discern from this newer collection of tax records whether intra-family financial maneuverings were a motivating factor. However, the fact that some of the consulting fees are identical to those reported by Mr. Trump's daughter raises the question of whether this was a mechanism the president used to compensate his adult children involved in his business. Indeed, in some instances where large fees were claimed, people with direct knowledge of the projects were not aware of any outside consultants who would have been paid. That's a big deal. So yeah, we're talking 1 for Trump, 2 for Kent Hovind, 3 for Kyle. On the failed hotel deal in... I have to say it in my head before I say it out loud. Azerbaijan. I don't know what the inflection is on it, and I apologize. Which was plagued by suspicions of corruption, a Trump Organization lawyer told The New Yorker the company was blameless because it was merely a licensor and had no substantive role, adding, quote, "We did not pay any money to anyone," end quote. Yet the tax records for 3 Trump's LLCs involved in that project show deductions for consulting fees totaling $1.1 million that were paid to someone. In Turkey, a person directly involved in developing 2 Trump towers in Istanbul expressed bafflement when asked about consultants on the project, telling the Times there was never any consultants or other third party in Turkey paid by the Trump Organization. But tax records show regular deductions for consulting fees over 7 years, totaling $2 million. Ms. Trump disclosed her public filings that the fees she received were paid through TTT Consulting LLC, which she said provided quote, consulting, licensing, and management service for real estate projects, end quote. Incorporated in Delaware in December 2005, the firm is one of several Trump-related entities with some variation of TTT or TTTT in the name that appear to refer to members of Trump's family. Like her brothers Donald Jr. and Eric, Miss Trump was a longtime employee of the Trump Organization and an executive officer for more than 200 Trump companies that licensed or managed hotel and resort properties. The tax records show that the 3 siblings had each drawn a salary from their father's company, roughly $480,000 a year, jumping to about $2 million after Trump became president. Azerbaijan. Oh, Azerbaijan? Is that how it's pronounced? Thank you. Azerbaijan. I'm trying. Though Miss Trump no longer receives a salary. So she is no longer blah, 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 blah. What's more, Mr. Trump has said that the children were intimately involved in negotiating and managing his projects. When asked in a 2011 lawsuit deposition whom he relied on to handle important details of licensing deals, he named only Ivanka, Donald Jr., and Eric. On Miss Trump's now defunct website, which explains her role at the Trump Organization, she was not identified as a consultant. Rather, she has been described as a senior executive who actively participates in all aspects of both Trump and Trump-branded projects, including deal evaluation, pre-development planning, financing, design, construction, sales and marketing, and ensuring that Trump's world-renowned physical and operational standards are met. She is involved in all decisions, large and small. They forgot an end quote. This quote's forever. Bruh. You want to talk about having too many jobs to be able, like, I'm willing to bet she's not actually a jack of all trades. She just had her fingers in too many cookie jars and was relatively unsuccessful. Or ineffective, I should say. The art of the write-off. I could have divvied this up into multiple videos. Private jets, country clubs, and mansions have all had a role in the selling of Donald Trump. Quote, "I play to people's fantasies," he wrote in Trump, The Art of the Deal. "People want to believe that something is the biggest and the greatest and the most spectacular. I call it truthful hyperbole." I'm surprised he knew the word hyperbole. I mean, to be fair, I guess he wrote this some time ago. It's an innocent form of exaggeration and a very effective form of promotion. I feel like an editor helped write that, because that does not sound like something he would say. If the singular Trump product, at least not currently, if the singular Trump product is Trump in an exaggerated form, the man, the lifestyle, the acquisitiveness, yeah, oh, cool, then everything that feeds the image, including the cost of his businesses, can be written off on his taxes. Mr. Trump may be reporting business losses to the government, but he can still live a life of wealth and write it off. Take, for example, Mar-a-Lago. Now the president's permanent residence, as well as a private club and stage set on which Trump's luxury plays out. As a business, it is also the source of millions of dollars in expenses deducted from taxable income, among them $109,433 for linens and silverware and $197,829 for landscaping in 2017. Also deducted as a business expense was the $210,000 paid to a Florida photographer over the years for shooting numerous events at the club, including 2016 New Year's Eve party hosted by Mr. Trump. Can you imagine being that photographer? Damn. Inkboy for 10 says, "This money is for game Baba is you. Please play it on stream. You will get a real headache trying to solve those puzzles." Thanks. Noted. I will do that. Mr. Trump has written off as business expense costs, including fuel and meals, associated with his aircraft used to shuttle him among his various homes and properties. Likewise, the cost of haircuts, including more than $70,000 paid to style his hair during The Apprentice. Wait, he got... How Why wouldn't The Apprentice be paying? Whatever. Oh, wait, because he like owned 50% or whatever. Okay. Together, 9 Trump entities have written off at least $95,464 paid to a favorite hair and makeup artist of Ivanka Trump. I imagine... I'm curious to know what it's like to be that person. Like, I would be curious to know what it's like to be in the position where you're offered so much money to do this, and are you liable to be like, I don't think I should take this money because this sounds sketchy, but at the same time, like, you're just there to do your job and you're getting paid for your work. Like, they're the ones laundering it. You know what I mean? I'd be curious to talk to those people about how they felt about it, because I'd be curious to know. Like, you guys let me know what you think, because I think that would be an interesting discussion. In allowing business expenses to be deducted, the IRS requires that they be ordinary and necessary, a loosely defined standard often interpreted generously by business owners, because of course it is. Perhaps Mr. Trump's most generous interpretation of business expense write-off in his treatment of the Seven Springs estate in Westchester County, New York. Seven Springs is a throwback to another era. The main house, built in 1919 by Eugene Myers Jr. What? I don't know if that's like an I, the number, or numerical I. The one-time head of the Federal Reserve, who bought the Washington Post in 1933, sits on more than 200 acres of lush, almost untouched land just an hour's drive from north of New York City. Quote, the mansion is 500 square feet, has 3 pools, carriage houses, and is surrounded by nature preserves, end quote, according to the Trump Organization website. Mr. Trump had big plans when he bought the property in 1996, a golf course, a clubhouse, and 15 private homes, but residents of the surrounding town thwarted his ambitions, arguing that development would draw too much traffic and risk polluting the drinking water. Fair. Mr. Trump instead found a way to recap tax benefits from the estate. He took advantage of what is known as a conservation easement. In 2015, he signed a deal with a land conservancy. Wow. My brain just stalled there for a second. Oh, so it is an I, not a number. Eugene Isaac Meyer. Thank you. Agreeing to not develop most of the property. In exchange, he claimed a $21.1 million charitable tax deduction. This is more money than some people have seen in, like, generations. The tax records reveal another way Seven Springs has generated substantial tax savings. In 2014, Mr. Trump classified the estate as an investment property as distinct from a personal residence. Since then, he has written off $2.2 million in property tax as a business expense, even as his 2017 tax law allowed individuals to write off only $10,000 in property taxes a year. Courts have held that to treat residents as a business for tax purposes, owners must show that they have an actual and honest objective to make a profit, typical by making substantial efforts to rent the property and eventually generating income. Whether or not Seven Springs fit those criteria, the Trumps have described the property somewhat differently. Oh, yo, how much does this sound like some Kyle would pull if he could? In 2014, Eric Trump told Forbes that, quote, this is really our compound. Growing up, he and his brother, Donald Jr., spent many summers there riding all-terrain vehicles and fishing on nearby lake. How much did Donald Jr. and Eric sound kind of like the Paul brothers? At one point, the brothers took up residence in a carriage house on the property. Quote, it was home base for us for a long, long time, Eric told Forbes. Like, Eric's just screwing everybody. He is trying to help us. Guys, Eric Trump is doing us favors and trying to help us as best as he can. Damn. And the Trump Organization website still describes Seven Springs as a retreat for the Trump family. Mr. Garten, the Trump Organization lawyer, did not respond to a question about the Seven Springs right off, because of course he didn't. The Seven Springs conservation easement deduction is one of 4 that Mr. Trump has claimed over the years. While his use of these deductions is widely known, his tax records show that they represent the lion's share of his charitable giving. About $119.3 million of roughly $130 million in his personal and corporate charitable contributions, reported the IRS. So he's a charity to himself? Should the tax law just be amended to say that you can only use one of the following to deduct your taxes? Because I feel like maybe that might plug a lot of holes. Pick one. Pick the one that's best for you, whatever, but that's all you get. 2 of those deductions at Seven Springs and at the Trump National Golf Club in Los Angeles are the focus of an investigation by the New York Attorney General, who is examining whether the appraisals on the land and therefore the tax deductions were inflated. Another common deductible expense for all businesses is legal fees. The IRS requires that these fees be directly related to operating your business, and businesses cannot deduct legal fees paid to defend charges that arise from participation in a political campaign. Yet the tax records show that the Trump Corporation wrote off as business expenses fees paid to a criminal defense lawyer, Alan S. Furterfuss, who was hired to represent Donald Trump Jr. during the Russia inquiry. Investigators were examining Donald Jr.'s role in the 2016 Trump Tower meeting with Russians who had promised damaging information on Miss Clinton. When he testified before Congress in 2017, Mr. Furterfuss was by his side. Mr. Furterfuss was also hired to defend the president's embattled charitable foundation, which would be shut down in 2018 after New York regulators said it had engaged in a shocking pattern of illegality. Shocking, I tell you. The Trump Corporation paid Mr. Furterfuss at least $1.9 million in 2017 and 2018, tax records show. Also written off was at least $259,684 paid to Williams & Jensen, another law firm brought in during the same period to represent Donald Trump Jr. The thing that should be most shocking to people is this sheer pile of money we're talking about. The amount... I do not understand people defending the egregiously wealthy from paying taxes. Well, no, we can't raise their taxes because then they might not be rich anymore. No, they'll still be rich. They're just going to be not... The gap between how rich they are, they're still going to be able to live their lives. They're not going to go hungry. I don't know. Meanwhile, people are dying, and you're like, yeah, but these people might not... What kind of argument is that? If the argument is that, oh, these people should just save money better and be better with their money, then the same thing applies to these people. Just be better with your money, then. If you're gonna go broke because you're paying taxes, you're not spending your money wisely. We're almost there. In May, this is a president and a businessman. Yeah, all right. In May, the chairman of a trade group representing Turkish business interests wrote to Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross urging support for increased trade between United States and Turkey. The ultimate goal was nothing less than reorientating the U.S. supply chain away from China. The letter was among 3 sent to cabinet secretaries by Mehmet Ali Yalçındag, chairman of the Turkey-U.S. Business Council, who noted that he had copied each one to Mr. Trump. The president needed no introduction to Mr. Wow, why would you give me his last name? Yalcindang. No, there's no N. Yalcidag. There we go. There, I was adding an N. I ran out of water. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to get some more water. One moment. One moment, please. Forgive me. I'm getting scratchy. This is difficult. Oh. These aren't easy, man. Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I can get this guy's name right. Yalcindog. There we go. I still don't know if that's correct, but it definitely sounds better. The president needed no introduction to Mr. Yalcindog. The Turkish businessman helped negotiate a licensing deal in 2008 for his family's company to develop 2 Trump Towers in Istanbul. Then the tax records show the deal has earned Mr. Trump at least $13 million, far more than previously known, including more than $1 million since he entered the White House, even as his one-time associate now lobbies on behalf of Turkish interests. Mr. Yalcindog said he had remained friendly with Mr. Trump since their work together years ago, but that all communications between his trade group and the administration go through formal channels and are properly disclosed. I mean, if that were the case, then how come this was far more amount than previously known? Sounds like bullshit. The ethical quandaries created by Mr. Trump's decision to keep his business well in the White House have been documented. That's not a decision. It's against the Is it not against the... Please, Americans, please tell me that I am incorrect, or if I am wrong here, that he's not supposed to be allowed via the Constitution to own a business. But the full financial measure of his extraordinary confluence of... Confluence? confluence of interests. A president with a wealth of business entanglements at home and a myriad geopolitical hotspots has remained elusive. The tax records for Mr. Trump and his hundreds of companies show precisely how much money he has received over the years and how heavily he has come to rely on leveraging his brand in ways that pose potential or direct conflicts of interest while he is president. The record also provide the first reliable window into his finances before 2014, the earliest year covered by his required annual disclosures, showing that his total profits from some projects outside the United States were larger than indicated by those limited public filings. The annulments clause. There you go. Based on the financial, there's got to be like a level of disconnect between the people that support the Constitution so much and realizing what Trump is doing. Like I'm assuming that they just do not understand like the degree of like they're not the people who are reading these articles or looking into this, or they brush it off as, oh well, the New York Times hates Trump, so of course it's going to read bad. It's not about whether it reads bad. This actually reads very neutrally. It's just talking about this is the information. Whatever. What am I going to do about it? Based on the financial disclosures, which report much of his income in broad ranges, Mr. Trump's earnings from the Istanbul Towers could have been as low as $3.2 million. In the Philippines, where he licensed his name to a Maniala Tower nearly a decade ago, the low end of the range was $4.1 million, less than half of the $9.3 million he actually made. Oh, you guys told me how to pronounce it. I gotta scroll up. How did I pronounce it? Azerbaijan. Hopefully. In Azerbaijan. Oh, no, I had another. In Azerbaijan, he collected more than $5 million for the failed hotel project, about twice what appeared on his public figures. Twice? Aluminum. Fucking auto-corrupt. It did not take long for conflicts to emerge when Mr. Trump ran for president and won. The Philippines strongman leader, Rodrigo Duterte chose a special trade envoy to Washington, the businessman behind the Trump Tower in Manila in Argentina, a key person who had been involved in the Uruguayan licensing deal. Uruguayan? I think that's how you would say it. Licensing deal that earned Mr. Trump $2.3 million, and $2.3 million was appointed to a cabinet post. The president's conflicts have been more evident with Turkey. Duterte. Send help. The president's conflicts have been more evident with Turkey, where the business community and the authoritarian government of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan have not hesitated to leverage various Trump enterprises to their advantage. When Turkish-American relations were at a low point, a Turkish business group canceled a conference at Mr. Trump's Washington hotel. 6 months later, when two countries were on better terms, the rescheduled event was attended by Turkish government officials. Turkish Airlines also chose the Trump National Golf Course in suburban Virginia to host an event. Oh. I mean, I don't know how you get more obvious than that. More broadly, the tax records suggest other ways in which Mr. Trump's presidency has propped up his sagging bottom line. Ew, I didn't need that in my brain. We've all seen the picture of Donald Trump playing tennis, right? More broadly, the tax records suggest the sagging bottom line. Yeah, great. Monthly credit card receipts reported to the IRS by third-party card processing firms reflect the way certain of his resorts, golf courses, and hotels became favored stomping grounds, if not venues, for influence trading beginning in 2015 and continuing into his time in the White House. The credit card data does not reflect total revenue and is useful mainly for showing short-term ups and downs of consumer interest in business. Well, two of Trump's marquee draws, the Washington Hotel in the old post office and the Doral Golf Course, are loaded with debt and continue to lose money. Both have seen credit card transactions rise markedly with his political ascent. I don't know how any of this did not just disqualify him ahead of time, and let alone running again. And to be fair, he has to run again. If he doesn't win, he's screwed. And on top of that, by doesn't win, I mean actually let's go with the presidency. I'm making the assumption that he's not going to leave willingly if he doesn't win the election. At the hotel, the monthly receipt grew from $3.7 million in December 2016, shortly after it opened, to $5.4 million in January in 2017, and $6 million by May of 2018. At Doral, after Mr. Trump declared his candidacy in June 2015, credit card revenue more than doubled to $13 million for the 3 months through August compared to the same period the year before. Oof. Egg. Yes, egg. One Trump enterprise that has been regularly profitable and is a persistent source of concern about ethical conflicts and national security lapses is the Mar-a-Lago Club. Profits there rose sharply after Mr. Trump declared his candidacy, as countries eagerly joining up brought a tenfold raise in cash from initiation fees. Jesus. From $664,000 in 2014 to just under $6 million in 2016, even before Mr. Trump doubled the cost at the initiation in January of 2017. The membership rush allowed the president to take $26 million out of the business from 2015 through to 2018, nearly triple the rate at which he had paid himself in the prior 2 years. Some of the largest payments from business groups for events or conferences at Mar-a-Lago and other Trump properties have come since Mr. Trump became president, the tax records show. Basically, Mr. Trump could have paid for everybody's COVID treatments on his own, apparently. Or at least the testing. Provided, all this money actually exists and isn't all actually just down the fucking drain. At Doral, Mr. Trump collected a total of at least $7 million in 2015 and 2016 from Bank of America, and at least $1.2 million in 2017 and 2018 from a trade association representing food retailers and wholesalers. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce paid Doral at least $406,599 in 2018. Beyond one-time payments for events or memberships, large corporations also pay rent for space in the few commercial buildings Mr. Trump actually owns. Walgreens, the pharmacy giant that resolved the antitrust matter before federal regulations in 2017, pay $3.4 million a year for a lease at 40 Wall Street, a Trump-owned office building in Manhattan. Another renter at 40 Wall for $2.5 million a year is Atani Engineers, which changed its name in 2018 after a corruption scandal that culminated in two former top executives pleading guilty to paying bribes for city infrastructure contracts. Despite the criminal case, which landed the company on New York State's list of non-responsible entities that required a waiver to obtain state contracts, the newly christened Atani registered as an eligible federal contractor with no restrictions listed in its file. It's just, everything is just a ball of fuck. Rental income overall at 40 Wall Street has risen markedly from $30.5 million in 2014 to $40.2 million in 2018. The tax records show that the cost of existing leases there has risen, and at least 4 law firms appear to have moved in since Trump ran for president. The lawyers were like, oh, this guy's gonna need some help, let's get in there. In addition to buildings he owns outright, there is the president's stake in the Verando partnership that control 2 valuable office towers, 1290 6th Avenue in Manhattan and 555 California Street in San Francisco. Verando's chief executive, Stephen Roth, is a close Trump ally recently named to the White House Economic Recovery Council. Last year, the president appointed Mr. Roth's wife, Daryl Roth, to the Kennedy Center Board of Trustees. Verando tenants include a roster of blue-chip firms paying multi-million-dollar leases, many of whom regularly do business with, lobby, or are regulated by the federal government. Among the dozens of leases paid in 2018 to Mr. Trump's Verando partnerships, according to his tax records, were $5.8 million from Goldman and Sachs, $3.1 million from Microsoft. Microsoft, can you not? Thanks. And $32.7 million from Neuberger Berman. I don't know what this one is. I'm going to look up what this one is because I don't know what this is. Oh, it's an investment. Sorry, it continues to tell me. An investment management company, and $8.8 million from the law firm Kirkland and Ellis. When Mr. Trump glided down the gilded Trump Tower escalator to kick off his presidential campaign in 2015, his finances needed a jolt. His core businesses were reporting mounting losses, more than $100 million over the previous 2 years. The river of celebrity-driven income that had long buoyed them was running dry. If Mr. Trump hoped his unlikely candidacy might at least revitalize his brand, his barrage of derogatory remarks about immigrants quickly cost him 2 of his biggest and easiest sources of cash. Yeah, that would do it. Licensing deals with clothing and mattress manufacturers that had netted him more than $30 million. NBC, his partner in Miss Universe, source of nearly $20 million in profits, announced that it would no longer broadcast the pageant. He sold it soon after. Now his tax records make clear that he is facing a battery of threats to his business and his own financial well-being. Over the past decade, he appears to have filled the cash flow gaps with a series of one-shots that may not be available again. In 2012, he took out a $100 million mortgage on a commercial space in Trump Tower. He took nearly the entire amount as a payout, his tax records show. His company has paid more than $15 million in interest on the loan, but nothing on the principal. The full $100 million amount million comes due in 2022. Sorry, in 2022. I mean, I still said that right, but whatever. I feel like I was unclear. In 2013, he withdrew $95.8 million from his Brando partnership account, and in July of 2014, he sold $98 million in stocks and bonds, his biggest single month of sales in at least the last 2 decades. He sold $54 million more in stocks and bonds in 2015 and $68.2 million in 2016. How is he going through so much money? Oh my god. So that's like, Jesus, if you were to give one person $1 million out of that total amount put together, hell, if you were to give everybody like $5,000, hell, if you were ever to give everybody, Jesus, whatever. Trump's, and in January 2014, blah, 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 his financial disclosure released in July showed that he had as little as $873,000 in securities left to sell. I mean, that's not a lot comparatively, but that's still a lot of money. That's still more than most people make in a year. Mr. Trump's business reported cash on hand of $34.7 million in 2018, down 40% from 5 years earlier. What's more, the tax records show that Mr. Trump has once again done what he says he regrets, looking back on his early 90s meltdown. Personally guaranteed hundreds of millions of dollars in loans, a decision that led his lenders to threaten to force him into personal bankruptcy. This time round, he is personally responsible for loans and other debts totaling $421 million, with most of it coming due within 4 years. Should he win re-election, his lenders could be placed in the unprecedented position of weighing whether to foreclose on a sitting president. Oh my god. Ugh. There is, however, a tax benefit for Mr. Trump. While business owners can use losses to avoid taxes, they can do so only up to the amount invested in the business. But by taking personal responsibility for that $421 million in debt, Mr. Trump would be able to declare that amount in losses in future years. The balance on those loans had not been paid down by the end of 2018, and the business carrying the bulk of the debt, the Doral Golf Course, $125 million, and the Washington Hotel at $160 million, are struggling, which could make it difficult to find a lender willing to refinance it. It would be nice if nobody refinanced it on, like, ethical purposes, like, on ethical bounds. They're all just like, you know what? No. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. As long as it's profitable, people will do it, but it'd be nice if they didn't. They're just judging whether or not it's going to be profitable. The unresolved audit of his $72.9 million tax refund hangs over his head. The broader economy promises little relief. Across the country, brick-and-mortar stores are in decline, and they have been very important to Trump Tower, which has in turn been very important to Mr. Trump. Nike, which rented the space for its flagship store in a building attached to Trump Tower and had paid $195.1 million in rent since the 1990s, left in 2018. The president's most recent financial disclosure reported modest gains in 2019, but that was before the pandemic hit. His already struggling properties were shut down for several months earlier this year. The Doral Resort asked Bank to allow a delay on its loan payments. So Trump's own properties were like, hey, can we not pay our mortgage? Well, he's being a dick to everybody else paying their mortgages. Oh, what an asshole. Analysts have predicted that the hotel business will not fully recover until late 2023. Mr. Trump, I'm at the end. Mr. Trump still has assets to sell, but doing so could take its own toll, both financially and to Mr. Trump's desire to always be seen as the winner. The Trump family said last year that it was considering selling the Washington hotel, but not because it was losing money. Oh, definitely not. In Mr. Trump's telling, any difficulty in his finances has been caused by the sacrifices made for his current job. They say Trump is getting rich off our nation, he said at a rally in Minneapolis late October. I lose billions being president, and I don't care. It's nice to be rich, but I guess, but I lose billions. Oh God, we got through it. I think the most revealing thing to me in this, I think what should be like baffling to people is just the sheer amount of money. The sheer like millions of dollars that we're talking about. It's hundreds of millions of dollars. But the thing that I think to me that struck a chord here is knowing what his money has been doing makes me understand a little bit better what he's been doing, like how he's been handling the pandemic and why he's so concerned about the economy or whatever is going on. But oh my God, yes, please tell me something uplifting, and I'll answer Inkboy's question in a second. Could Trump be Kyle's cellmate? That would be really funny. Oh God. Whew. How long has this been? This is 2 hours. Oh, I almost feel like I should split this into 2 parts, but you know what? I'm kind of glad we got through it. Please give me something uplifting. Oh, is that Icarus's thing? Thank you. Oh no, I got rid of chat by accident. Sorry. I'll come back to chat in a second. 5 German brands you pronounced wrong. I could do a reacts to that if you really want. I don't know if that's a good idea, but it would be funny. Can you foreclose on the White House? You would have to own it. Trump does not own the White House, so I don't think... I mean, he might try. Oh my God. Okay, so Feline said that she calculated the hours of updates and start of Non Sequitur Show content, and it's 93 hours, 13 minutes, and 38 seconds. I'd be curious to know. I thought for just to do something funny, it would be funny to look at all the people who've been making videos about it who are, like, wrong. So, like, Uni, Nate, Menace, Kyle, I guess. Essentially, that entire, like, club of rejects, and just counting up how many, like, putting all their videos in a spreadsheet and putting the time in and just totaling the amount of time they've spent talking about Steve. It'd be really funny. They tend to, like, delete their videos, though, so, I mean, all of the ones that ProLib did are gone, which is, you know, I'm not about to complain, but whatever. I just thought it would be funny. It would also be funny to see how many actually end up staying and how many end up disappearing. Shilius's vid is still gotta be my favorite. As for, yes, there is an update on Reds' channel, so if you have not seen that, go and check that out. I hope things work out for him. I'm sure we'll get to see rocket launches. Again, they're not going to be the little rocket launches, but the big ones we'll still get, which is going to be great. I'm sure the community and everybody that kind of works with him behind the scenes, so like the other creators, will do everything that they can to support him going back to see to be able to film those rocket launches for you guys. Also, Astronomy Live picking up the mantle will I think ease that a little bit, and I'm sure he will do a fantastic job, and I hope the best for him. But yeah, go check that out. I'm sure he'll have good content still. It just won't be rocket launches quite so much. It is what it is. Go show him your support. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. And thank you for coming over here and supporting this 2-hour reading of tax crap. This blew my mind. I don't know, play Minecraft or something. Jesus. I don't know. You have to ask him. I'm only privy to so much information. I'm only the secretary. All right. Thank you everybody for coming. Go check that video out. Go check out Sit Down with Debunkers. Go check out AT2. I think he's got something special coming out soon, if I'm not mistaken. I actually have to go look to see if it's come out yet. I don't know. And there is, by the way, that time of the month coming. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday there will be a special Halloween relationships. So, by special Halloween, I just mean maybe some of us will be in costume. We're mostly just going to be chatting it up. So, feel free to like, subscribe, hit the bell, become a member if you would like to help support. Links to Patreon are down below if you're not interested in that and just want to kind of join in the funny, silly stuff that goes on. There is also Amazon wishlist for Puck and also for me. Quite soon. Oh, go subscribe to AT2 because apparently he's got something coming out soon that I'm looking forward to it. I'm probably I gotta buy more popcorn. Or hey, buy me more popcorn by following the link in the description. PayPal me. Have a good night, everybody. Or day, whatever. Get me out.